Hello, and welcome to Bangladesh Feminist Oral History Project, an initiative by the Bangladesh Feminist Archives. I'm Tanvir Anoy. I'm an academic, archivist, and activist, and I'm honored to be hosting today's conversation. This project documents and amplifies the voices of Bangladeshi feminists across generations, whose work has transformed the landscapes of activism, advocacy, and collective memory. Today, we are in conversation with Warda Ashraf, a feminist activist, social worker, and development professional whose work has spanned over 12 years across international NGOs and grassroots feminist organizing. Warda is a longtime member of Naripokkho, where she has helped lead public campaigns, feminist dialogues, and creative advocacy efforts, including art exhibitions, rallies, and televised programming. Her work focuses on custody and guardianship rights, stigmatized public discourse, and creating safer spaces for women and marginalized people in Bangladesh. Emerging from a deeply personal journey of reclaiming voice and autonomy, Warda brings powerful insight into the intersections of gender, public health, social justice, and creative activism. Today, she shares with us her journey of survival, resistance, and rebuilding a feminist life on her own terms. So, Wardapa, let's begin with your story. What shaped your early feminist and political consciousness?
First of all, Onoy, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. And I really have to express my gratefulness to you for taking out your time and thought and effort to coordinate this archive. I can't tell you how important this is. I mean, we do a lot of work that goes kind of slips and goes, and the history does not stay in one place for the next generation to see. And because we don't have that time to put in and keep them all together, and keep it in an organized place. So this is really commendable. Thank you so much for doing this. And I feel especially honored because I remember that we used to host author's show. This was during the COVID time. And I had the lovely opportunity to interview you for your first book that was released. And I think we did another one also in the following year when your second book came out. So this is very nice to be interviewed by you on a feminist topic. So thank you for doing this, and I'm honored that you chose me. So it's also a very unique opportunity to share your story of becoming a feminist. I also am very grateful for that. It gave me some time to think about my journey, to myself. So that was a privilege. So going back to my childhood, I grew up in you could say, a little unconventional family. By the time that I was born, my brothers were a lot older. They were 10 and 9, and I was a baby. And for whatever reason, my father had decided to stop working. And my mother, who was a doctor, when I was 6 years old, I saw her sort of being the single breadwinner for the family. And I saw her go out every day to work, come back, and my father being very respectful towards her, my father taking over the domestic, responsibilities. He would look after the, household things. He was the one who was teaching me every day, preparing me for school, which are things like that we see those, being done by the mother in the regular households in like Bangladesh or the South Asian families. So that was a norm for me. That was a norm. I mean, growing up, that's what I saw. I saw other families having a different, custom, but for me, that was the normal thing because I was experiencing it myself. And I was increasingly hearing people not appreciating that very much, you know, which for me was a wonderful thing to see because I saw my mother working very hard. And at that time, we were going through a lot of financial crisis. My mother being kind of the hero of the family. There was a time that even we had like a 5,000 taka income monthly. I mean, can you imagine? This is in the mid 90s. So it was we had gone through severe financial crises, and from there my mother slowly built up the family. And my father was not very well physically. He had heart issues, so he kept off work, and we were a very happy family. So that model to me meant like, okay, so this is how a family functions, when I mean, people step up and people do their roles, as needed. But the society did not accept that very well. I remember my father was respected less and less because he was not working. He was not a working person. And my mother was not given any special credit for being the breadwinner. It was rather like, okay, so she's the wife of the person who doesn't work. That was her, what shall I say, porichoy, identity. So that really bothered me initially. And seeing my mother being a very independent, a woman who was taking her own decision, and in our house decisions were discussed and taken together. It was never like I never felt oppressed. I had a space to voice out my things. But personally, when I was becoming a teenager, when I was like, I hit puberty and I was going through a physical change, that's when I started to face the challenges, the personal challenges in my life. Before that, I never differentiated between me and my brothers. Whatever my brothers did, I was like, okay, so my brother is doing that. I must be able to do that as well when I grow up. But then when I was turning like from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, it increasingly started becoming difficult for me to do the things that I love. Like I used to love playing sports. I used to love going out and play with the boys, football, cricket, whatever it was, I was there. I was very participatory at that age. I would participate in everything that was happening outside. And since I hit puberty, there was this added pressure of me having to wear an orna, patat kore, a piece of drape that covers your body from the top. So it was that was like completely unacceptable for me. Like I could see other women wearing it, but for me it was like but that sets me apart. That makes me different from the other boys, and I did not differentiate between myself and the boys, before that. And as a young girl, my thinking at the time was that I'm not going to wear an ulna to cover myself. I would rather remove the things that is making me different. Honestly, that's the kind of thinking that I had at the time. I had very short hair, and I thought that I would have an operation and remove anything that's making me different from the boys, because I wanted to have the opportunity to go out and play. And I wanted to have the opportunity to be like them, not anything different, not anything less or more. So those really were disturbing thoughts and disturbing things in my mind at the time, and I think also affected my studies, my relationship with my family, my relationship with my relatives. I think I kind of became a villain in the eyes of my relatives, because I would not want to wear an onna. I wanted to wear a t-shirt and a pant, and my relatives felt that they needed to tell me and make me understand why I needed to do that. And they would have long conversations with me, which ended in very heated arguments. And eventually they preferred that I don't mix with their children. And I was very shocked because I had very good grades. I was a good child. I cared about other people. I was very kind, and I practiced all kinds of good things that you need to practice in a society to be accepted and to be respected. But yet I wasn't being respected because of certain choices that I wanted to make that were very personal to me. So that was the beginning of my realization that somehow I am thinking in a different way. Somehow I'm becoming more and more isolated, you know. But the thought of feminist, it was not a popular idea at the time, and I don't believe I even knew the word existed until much later, until I was in university. So anyway, I was also a musician. I was doing performances. I was doing shows. And all of that I had to really fight very hard with my, with my family to do that, because I had to go out in the evenings to do those shows. I'll be back home very late, and despite of keeping good grades and despite of ensuring my safety, these were not accepted social practices. A girl staying out till very late, without women company, it was not seen as very, very positive things. And I would have to constantly fight with my family to let me do what I wanted to do. So, however, I think that a huge influence that I had from my childhood in becoming somebody who, I think many of us feel this way that I felt in my younger years, but probably do not actively work towards, you know, uh, establishing their own rights or the rights of others. But I think some of the things that really supported in me being a more active in this, in this field, in this area, me thinking that, that I need to come out and probably share my thoughts, probably work with other people to bring this out in society. I think where the films that I watched at a very early age, we had at the time access to channels like HBO and Star Movies, and we had a lot of Bangla content as well, Bangla natok. And I don't remember the names of all of them, but there were these fantastic natok, short drama in Bangla that spoke about women who had been acid survivors, their stories. Women, there have been stories about violence against women, and like jotuk, dowry related issues, and then women not being able to rely on their male partners. Fantastic, beautiful storytelling of how women need to be independent. And these are in Bangla, like not Hollywood content. And then I also watched a number of films that were very inspiring to me. Like I don't know if you got to watch this. I think late 80s, 90s film called Dangerous Mind. So Michelle Pfeiffer was the protagonist there. I don't recall if she was a protagonist, but she was a teacher who really inspired and supported other women and the Black community at the time in America to graduate and come out of their life in the ghetto, which was very dangerous at the time. And then there were films like The Sister Act, where Whoopi Goldberg and Lauryn Hill, they were such powerful voices, and they were doing their activism through music, through a choir, and they were saying their life story through songs. And those were extremely, I think, powerful content for me at the time that helped me build my language of protest and kind of, I think, shaped my early years of becoming a feminist. And of course, my mother um, has been always a very strong person in my life. Like she was somebody that I watched. Very interestingly, our family, my mother and my father had a very loving relationship. They were like best of friends. But my father had a tendency to like drive us into all kinds of very difficult situations, including financial, crises. But my mother always had this way of bringing us out of it, and yet their relationship was not majorly affected. That was my life story. I grew up watching my mother being the hero and always uh, helping the family to survive and restoring peace and happiness in the family. So I could not imagine being anything else than that. And despite of my mother being having all the abilities and having accomplished everything that she did, one of the things that really struck me was that all of us, including you and me, growing up in a patriarchal system, my mother was absolutely not confident about herself growing up. she always believed that she needed a man to approve her thoughts and decisions for her to move forward with it. I noticed that after my father passed away, he passed away when I was very young. I was 12 when he passed away. My mother would go to the senior male members of our family for discussions and decisions, and she wanted their approval to move forward with the things that she did. And very interestingly, majority of them never approved of the things that she wanted to do, and she went on with them anyway. And she was also, like one of the villains in the family, like, okay, because she doesn't listen to anyone. But this really bothered her. But at the same time, I felt that my mother, despite of having all the abilities and accomplishments that she had, she herself in her mind is much of a patriarch, and that was my later struggle. When I was growing up, despite of her working all her life, she did not uh, it was not her dream for me to see work in a good organization, have my own life, have my independence, earn money. She would have been much happier if I was married to a, like a good family with a good man with wealth and riches. And I understood that. I ignored that for most of the part, but I understood that when I got a job, and it was not a matter of excitement for my family. I was working very hard in the job that I took, my first job, but I saw that my family was not they did not recognize it as something, that as my accomplishment, and they needed to, like, like, give me a clap at least. So that felt really bad, because I was giving away majority of my time into my working life without much appreciation from the people that I really loved and that I counted on, that okay, so they would probably be happy. So that became a new struggle for me. That became a new struggle for me. But all of those things, I later came to understand is not actually my um, individual or isolated struggle, but they were a struggle of majority of us women living in a patriarchal society where the system itself dominates that kind of a thinking. So those were sort of like the very early things that shaped my, dissent and my language for protest. Yeah.
Wow, Warda, but such a profound answer. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I know like personal journeys can be very, very, very sensitive. I'm so happy that like you shared your experience and your life story with us. Thank you. Okay. So, Wardapa, how did you come into Naripokkho? And what was the draw and how did your role evolve within the organization?
Right, right. So this is where I will talk about my marriage a little bit, because I learned about Naripokkho when I was very young. I learned about Naripokkho because I knew one of the members when I was in my mid-teen, like 16 or 17. I saw her share pictures of Naripokkho's activities, and I had aspired to visit Naripokkho. Like I was like, wow, Naripokkho. So this is an organization that works for the rights of women, and I felt so inspired. But at the time, I was kind of in the middle of a very toxic relationship, um, and that started in my mid-teen. This is my this person was also my band member at the time, and later on we got married, and this was a 7-year-old relationship that turned into a 9-year-old marriage, through and through very toxic. But because we grew up in such a toxic environment ourselves, I could not identify that this was actually something not normal. Um, to me, I was thinking like the same way that I'm hiding the toxicity in which I'm living in. Probably everybody is hiding the toxicity in which they are living in. This is probably a reality of the world. So So, I'm sharing this because just so that you know that even a person like me could be stuck in a long-term toxic relationship, and I feel bad for my ex-husband and ex-boyfriend, because I think he could have done a lot better if we could actually separate at the right time. So I don't believe either of us had benefited by being in that kind of a toxicity. So anyway, um, so during the reason why the relationship worked for so long is because we were also band members, and I had big dreams of doing something good musically. I wanted to. We grew up listening to such great music, in Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi bands, মানে বাংলাদেশের রবীন্দ্রসঙ্গীত, নজরুল সঙ্গীত, পল্লী গীতি, ভাওয়াইয়া, জারি গান, সারি গান, just such rich musical history that we have in Bangladesh and beyond. I also had the opportunity to listen to a lot of world music, music of the West, music of even the tribal music. So I overall had a great passion for music myself, and the reason why the relationship worked for so long, because I really believed that at some point that dream of ours would kind of drown out and help heal all the traumas and toxicities that were in the relationship. However, it did not. I even had 2 children in that marriage, actually. And thank God the children are very well. The children are doing well, and we're managing it well. We're co parenting now, but not without initial difficulty. The initial phases were extremely hard, extremely hard. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because despite of my will and despite of my um, inner commitment of wanting to be involved in women's rights movement, women, to do something more than just personal, what should I say, like personal little contributions, to be involved with the larger women's rights movement. It wasn't until COVID time. It wasn't until after my divorce that I actually started working with Naripokkho. It had always been like a distant dream. Like I was a girl looking at Naripokkho and thinking that, you know, I want to go visit. I wanna work with them. And I met Sheen up in a lot of events, and I saw her, and I felt like I want to tell her that I want to work with you guys, but I just never did. I don't know why. I felt like I had the kids, and I just felt like I did not know enough exactly how to start the conversation, and it just and years and years and years went by. So, however, in it was during Rage Against Rape that I think, once again, look at us. So many incidents of rape is happening. Like we are getting the news, we're getting the coverages, but it was during Rage Against Rape, when this woman was raped in this area in Borishal, Begumganj, and when her video was made viral, that's when people started to really make an uprise. And I mean, so I mean, rape has been an ongoing struggle, but it isn't until it gets to that extreme level that general people's you can really knock their up out of their sleeping state. So, however, I think uh, I think this was in 2020 October. I think it was 2020 October during COVID, and at that time, lot of feminists from different walks of life, different generation, like intergenerational feminists, like sort of like collaboration happened. I remember Umama Zillur, saying that, as a very young feminist, I heard an interview where she was saying that, we realize that this is an issue that we can't have a one-off, like a protest, but this has to be an ongoing protest. This has to be an ongoing campaign until it really stops, and we're not going to stop until it stops. And I really loved that. I really loved that very powerful statement coming from a young feminist who's, I think she just graduated school, or like she was very young at the time. And she had these other feminists with her, and they formed Kotha at the time that really inspired me. And I was writing away on Facebook, protesting against that thing, because I felt like this has become so big that if I write about it, I would get people in my community to also, uh, align their emotions would be aligned with it. Before that, I did not have a lot of feminists in my network with whom I could share, so that went really, like, that created a lot of ripples in the society, that particular incident. At that time, I don't know if you remember, the claim from a number of groups of women in colleges and schools was to make uh, mrityu dando, decapitation, right? Yeah, mrityu dando, the um, punishment for rape. At the time, it was jabojibon. It was not mrityu dando. So at the time, there was a claim like that, and I also had wrote on my Facebook that, mrityu dando chai, as, yeah, because when I because of course I was very angry, and everyone was angry, and we felt that, I think sharbochcho shasti chai, the highest form of punishment should be in the legal structure for rape. That's when Shirin had called me. Shirin called me for the first time. I don't know how she even got my number, but she called me. And she called me and she said that, what, I saw that you wrote this on your Facebook. So do you really think that mrityu dando, decapitation as a punishment, capital punishment for rape would solve the problem? We have seen in research that the level of punishment has not brought down crime anywhere in the world. People know that the level of punishment is such and such and such. And in fact, the level of punishment actually delays justice and derails from justice sometimes, because if you cannot prove it, like, nobody wants to give a capital punishment, to a person unless it's really proven, and it's a difficult punishment to give, so it actually reduces your chance to get justice. So do you really think that this will help? So I want you to think about it. That's what she said. She did not tell me that, take your dad down. She did not tell me that you're wrong. She said nothing, but she just told me that she wanted me to think about it. And I thought that that was so great. Nobody had ever asked me that. Nobody had asked me what I think, about a particular issue and a situation, and wanted me to really like question me in that way. So I stayed in touch with Srinava afterwards, and I tried to somehow, I got into the Naripokkho Tuesday meetings. I think she was the one who said that there's a meeting on Tuesday. Why don't you join us? So in Naripokkho, there is a Tuesday meeting that happens every week, and then you join for 6 months, and then if you can, like, if you see that yes, Naripokkho is for you, and Naripokkho also thinks that, yeah, you're a good asset for the organization, then you can become a member. So I started, and that was a very, what shall I say, very politically charged, very lot of activisms going on in with different types of feminist organizations. I remember Trishyapa. I remember meeting Trishyapa in the March. The International Women's Day rally was being organized, and Trishyapa was also there, and she was trying to support in organizing a even more grander rally for the Women's March. And then Tasafi was also coming into the meetings. So it was like a huge engagement of intergenerational feminists. So I thought that it was like, for me, it was like heaven. It was like, wow, like suddenly so many women bringing in their thoughts and are able to speak. And we're also allowed to criticize, we're allowed to have we're able to be in a platform where we can argue, we can come to a improved decision, we can, like, it was a place for dialogues and debates, and until an issue was settled, it would not be like ignored. Nothing was ignored. I was like, how is this even possible? Like this is the aspiration of, like it's not realistic, but that's how the platform operated at the time. And we had a beautiful, vibrant group of young feminists, and we founded a smaller feminist circle within Naripokkho of 5, 6 people. Shejuti was a part of it, Mala was a part of it, Zareen was a part of it, uh, um, Tanzia was a part of it, and who else was there? I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anyone, but I think there was like 5 or 6 of us. I think Ujjiman Appa was also a part of it, and we decided, we would, from the younger feminist platform, we would start something to engage the younger crowd, and then eventually my work sort of started with Naripokkho, with those activities that we took from the younger feminist platform. It was initially called Sahoj Kothin Dande Chande, which is kind of a hard name, but it was, I think Rabindranath's. It was taken from one of Rabindranath's poem or song, Sahoj Kothin Dande Chande, and under that platform, under that banner, we took 2 initiatives which went on for a long time. We had more plans, but not all of them were executed. But the 2 of them that I'll mention now was hosting regular webinar conversations with experts, feminists, legal people, people working in the field, labor rights movement, leaders, like all sorts of people in the community and the society, who are basically, what shall I say, like um, we wanted to cover as many topics as possible that were relevant to women's, emancipation in Bangladesh, and we would host one show every month. That was the plan. And for me, it was a fantastic experience because that kind of a discourse, is like not you're not always able to physically go and attend a lot of things that were happening at the time. But since it was COVID time and we were doing it online, we were able to manage like 1 or 2 conversations every month. And in those Zoom meetings, we would see women from villages coming, because Naripokkho is connected to a lot of, grassroots organizations, including Durbar. And so I would see these women who had the videos on, who were in their village home. You could see the background that they had just finished cooking and they've come and attending the talk. So it was fantastic. It was a space for women to talk about their issues, no matter if they're like a garments worker or say, for example, even we spoke about domestic workers. We wanted to host some talks about tea workers. We had hosted talks on violence against women. We had hosted talks again over um, like safety of children, child abuse, sexual harassment in against children, and what we can do as women for that issue, and then harassment at workplaces. So various topics we would talk about, and from there our expectations were that some sort of an action would come out, and for some of the issues we did have follow-ups. And some actions would be, like generated, and some of the issues probably would be deprioritized and we would keep that for working on later. And the second thing that I worked on with the Sahoj Kothin Danda Chande group was the art exhibition. So this is where I'll just speak about Naripokkho a little bit, about its background. That Naripokkho was always founded and had thrived on cultural movements, সাংস্কৃতিক মানে আন্দোলন, হ্যাঁ? So Naripokkho had always tried to host and communicate to people through, you know, performances, arts performances, music, and songs, and like Poppy Appa was one of the driving persons in the organization to bring in the cultural movement as a tool or a method or a mechanism for spreading the message across like a wider audience. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was art exhibition, and it was Tanzia's idea. Tanzia came up with the idea. Tanzia is an artist herself, and she said that why don't we do something, where we collect, we open a exhibition up to like women across Bangladesh, and let's see, what comes in. So we had this kind of a nebulous idea of holding an exhibition, holding a art competition. Art, I mean, the exhibition idea came on in later, but it was initially an art competition. And that's when, during that time, Srinapa would try to attend our meetings, the Shortcoating Dondechonda meetings as often as possible. Kamrunapa would attend the meetings. Many other Naripokkho members would attend the meetings. But Srinapa was, when she saw that we were just kind of like going around circles and how to go about this idea that we have, she was like, her leadership really brought so much into the group. She immediately was like, okay, you need Firdos here. You need Firdos's idea. And then she called Firdos Appa. Firdos Appa is a long-term member, like one of the founding members of Naripokkho, and she's a professor in Brack University of English literature. So she was called into the meeting immediately, and she joined it. Like this is happening in the meeting. Like we're having a conversation, and she calls Vidusapa. Vidusapa comes in, and then Vidusapa says, "Okay, you want to do an art exhibition? Why don't you do it on Narir Shopno? Why don't you do it on Rokea's, Sultana's dream? Why don't you have that as a theme?" And then she talks about Sultana's dream and how the story unfolded. And she said that, you can use that concept as a theme for the art exhibition, because you have to give a theme to the exhibition. And then we were like, wow, that's so beautiful. Nari Shopno. What better thing to start the whole, art competition with. And then we actually went on with that, name and the banner, the Nari Shopno, and we opened it up to women, Bangladeshi women inside and outside of Bangladesh. And within like 3 months, we had the like a black flyer go out to universities, and through Durbar network, to all the networks that we had sent it out to like different places across Bangladesh, and we received around 110 submissions from 11 districts at the time, 11 districts. And we are not the best at marketing, I tell you that. We are not the best at marketing, but 11 districts at the time, it felt a lot for us, because like it's mostly the divisional districts submitted, but also beyond that, women submitted from 15. We opened it up from like 15 to 15 and above. Anyone can apply, and they were like, I think the majority of the submissions we received were like below 25-year-olds, and it was I was given the responsibility to like make a short list of the submissions for our judges, and I could not make a short list. I could not do a short listing. I was like, this is so great. It doesn't matter what happens. We have three excellent, wonderful judges who will take their time. We'll make them go through all the pictures. I remember still that I was after work, like in midnight, I had the time to go through the artworks that we received. And Onoy, I cannot tell you, uh, if you let women do their thing, if they get the opportunity, you cannot imagine the work they can show for themselves, you know. And there were a lot of first time artists who had uh, made a painting and submitted to a thing for the first time, and they were so gorgeous. Some of them had so many layers to them, you know, of social oppression. Some of them had so many layers of dreams to them, you know. I remember this one where she had drawn a park and where women are just lying and some of them are cycling and reading a book. So beautiful, and I thought that this is what we want to see in the society. And they had painted it. And, if we have so many women thinking like this, then maybe someday we can have a society like that, you know? So it makes me emotional just thinking about it. So I had all that art, and then we opened it up to the judges. We had selected 50 art from there, which went on to the exhibition that we have posted later on at Drake. Drake had really supported us to kind of get their hall for 9 days, at a discounted rate. And at the time, we organized it. We opened it on 9th December. 9th December is the birthday and at the same time the uh, you know uh, death anniversary of Rokeya Shakawat Hussain. In honor of her, we opened it on 9th December, and it went on till the 16th of December. So it was a total 7 days, 7 days of exhibition. And it was a fantastic experience. We had wanted to do it, make it a regular thing, but unfortunately, eventually that young group, I think everyone had their uh, engagements in other places, and some of them later on also like dropped out of Naripokkho. Some of them had certain ক্ষোভ against Naripokkho, and এগুলো করে চলে চলে গেল, তো ওইটা kind of break out হয়ে গেল. So after that, I think I was involved in more of like some of the mainstream activities of Naripokkho, and currently I am coordinating a platform from which um, we have launched advocacy and campaign for equal rights for women in custody and guardianship law. So that's something that a lot of organization is working on, and we're trying to coordinate a platform where we can come together and we can make this advocacy stronger. So Blast, Naripokkho, Mohila Porishod have made actually recently also made a petition based on certain cases. So that's being a full-time INGO, worker, a development practitioner. It's very difficult for us to regularly host meetings unless something happens. But we have continued the efforts, and some of the achievements recently that we have experienced is that in 2020 for April, a petition was made on revision of the current law, where I don't know if you know this, but currently we don't have the law that we have does not grant um, guardianship to women. Women are only granted custody based on the children's age and the woman's capacity and the overall welfare assessment of the child. But the guardian, the father, remains the natural guardian, especially in the Muslim law. That's how it is. And if the court is to grant a guardianship to the mother, it has to be an exception to the rule. So we had Blast, Naripokkho, Mohila Porishod, Barrister Rashna Imam's Institute, and Anita Ghazi. They had together made a petition in April 2024 for the Supreme Court to answer, like, why is there this discriminatory law, while the Constitution says that the law will be equal for men, women, irrespective of people's gender and background. The law of Bangladesh will be equal to them. So this actually contradicts with that statement, in the Constitution. So it was a petition filed for to the Supreme Court, and that is under review. And there's a board now, and they already held a meeting in this earlier this year. So we're trying to follow up with that board, and now a committee is formed, and hopefully we will see some good results moving forward. Yeah.
Wow, Wadapa, that was such an informative, I would say, answer. Thank you so much for like sharing with us. Like, I'm mesmerized. Thank you. Um, so my next question is to you is that so you have also worked for over a decade in international development spaces, often inside structures that are not always aligned with feminist values. So how do you navigate the tensions between institutional frameworks and feminist principles?
Right. Very interesting question, and very important question, because we have to work, right? We have to work to be independent, to have financial freedom, um, to if you want to be if you want to be empowered, if you want to have agency, if you want to make your own decisions, there is no option for you than to have financial, freedom and independence. So, so unfortunately, like if you look at Bangladesh, um, like I am a second generation working woman. I saw my mother. She was a working woman. My grandmother was not a working woman. She was she would be home. She was educated. She could read and write, but she was not a working person. Many of us living in Bangladesh at the moment are probably like first generation working women, and so these workspaces, people are not used to having women for decades and decades, whereas for men, for as long as history serves, they have been working. So there is a this is a history that we cannot ignore. It comes with a lot of dynamics when you have that kind of a history. Like patriarchy has been the longest surviving oppression, form of oppression that we know of. And it's said that one of the reasons that patriarchy had survived for so long is because somehow they were able to convince the women that patriarchy is good for them. So women themselves have been a vehicle to patriarchy for most of history, and now in our time, like when we look at the feminist movements, we see more and more women engagement. It's an increasing number of women who are asking for their rights and asking for their freedom. But this was historically, it was a smaller number. Like if you look at the formal world history, then it starts with Mary Wollstonecraft's, like Room to Read and her write-ups on her explicitly feminist write-ups. But even before that, we had Kona, we had Kona's activities, Kona Bachon, Kona literature. But I mean, I don't know if you look at the world history, that's not really well documented because these were more of verbal history, So for certain, if there could be Kona, there must have been more feminists before that we don't have any documentation of. We have Cleopatra and other women leaders from before who had led, but we don't know about their feminist um, like consciousness and that kind of we don't have any pieces on those writings. So, however, so coming to like in the 2000s, post 2000s, the workplaces, I work in the development sector. The development sector is probably one of the most sensitive sectors, where gender equality matters, where the development sector works for the rights of the marginalized and the deprived. The sector exists because the sector advocates for equality. The sector advocates for, opportunity and rights of all, you know, irrespective of their backgrounds. So even in what shall I say, in the development sector, I would say that we have very good policies, very good HR policies, gender policies, anti-harassment policies, anti-bullying policies, PSA policies. But despite of that, it's one thing to have your policies, at one place, and then the other thing is to practice it, right? It's the practices are another thing. So I would say that in the development sector, um, I have worked in 5 different organizations, and increasingly I have seen better practices. I'm happy to say that increasingly I have seen better practices. The first organization that I worked with, I saw a very senior uh, sexual harassment, a very senior person commit a sexual harassment offense. And it was brought in by an intern at the time. A complaint was brought in by an intern at the time. And there was investigation, and the senior person got away. That's what I witnessed. The senior person got away, and it was what shall I say? It was heartbreaking. It was a terrible, terrible thing to watch because this senior person was known to be a sexual harasser. This was not the first case, so he had a reputation of doing that, but the organization thought that he is more value to the organization because he has all this experience, he's bringing in money for the organization. Code of conduct was not brought in before his value that he was bringing into the organization. And the person who filed the complaint was somebody very young, somebody who was an intern, and it was like we had all staff sexual harassment awareness training after that, following that event, but nothing happened. The intern left. Intern was Her contract was not continued after her internship. She was a very bright girl, but it could have been that the organization continued with her in a permanent position, but they did not. And the man who had committed the assault, he continued with the organization. So this is early on in my career. But later on, as I moved on to different organizations, I saw better practices. And at that early stage, it also like really bothered me because I was wondering like, what is my role, in a situation like that? Like, what is my role? And I felt very frustrated that except for listening to her story, there was not much that I heard the story after I left the organization, after we had a conversation, like a coffee date much later. That's when I got to know. So, um, and later on in other organizations, um, there is a thing, there is the effort to establish a better culture, and then there's the individual cases and how you deal with those things. But I've observed that over the years, as I moved on to different organizations, COC was really given a lot of importance. I think, especially after the incident that happened in, I don't recall the name of the country, but in the Caribbeans, I think somewhere in the Americas, like Oxfam had gone through a very big sexual harassment. It actually was a like however, I don't remember the year that it happened, but it was Oxfam that kind of got like under the spotlight, and that had kind of blacklisted Oxfam from a lot of the donors lists, and people started taking it much more seriously. That if we have this kind of issues and if it kind of gets public, it's really a reputational risk for the organizations. And eventually, I saw more seriousness, and also it depends on organization to organization, like how they will address this sort of issues. And sexual harassment is just one side of it. Equal pay, promotions, promoting women's to leadership positions. Um, I would say that I am kind of lucky that I have worked in organizations where I saw a lot of women in leadership positions. I'm not going to name the organizations, but in the recent years, I have been in organizations where I saw nearly like 40% women leadership, like 30 to 40% women leadership, which was really fantastic. It makes a big difference when you have that kind of a thing. But that is not the case in all organizations. That is not the case in all organizations, but I would say that I am someone who got the opportunity to kind of, in very small ways, work towards creating better, like ecosystem and environment. Like, I'll give you an example. Currently, there is a network that is facilitated by the UN uh, Residential Coordinators Office. It's a PSCA network, and I'm a member of it from my organization. And recently, what they are trying to do, and this is very important, okay? So, what they're trying to do recently is they're trying to make it a must for their um, vendors, not only like partners, but not only NGO partners and these partners, but vendors, as in like the private sector, companies, to have a very thorough PSCA policy, so that if a woman or a man like has brings out a sexual harassment case, they have the full mechanism to run an investigation, make a report, take action, follow through the case. And I'll tell you, Onoy, that this is something that in the private sector is not at all prioritized. In the development sector, because of the donors strict rules, this has been developed over and over time, and also because of uh, the form of, like the, what shall I say, like because of the kind of work that we do, this has gained some priority. But in the private sector, you can actually go to no one. You go to the HR serves the management, and the management are usually the ones, harassing and trying to take advantage and committing the PACA violations. So, so this is something that the sector is trying to do now, to create pressure on the private sector from the leverage points that are available to it, so that they have PSCA policies. And I remember that when I was working in my previous organization, they had a they had a hotline where vendors, partners, anyone could call in that hotline and put in a complaint, you know, and then they would run an investigation. They had the capacity to run an investigation sorry, not an investigation. They would communicate with the management of the private company or the partner, and if they did not take actions timely, the contract would be terminated. That was the policy. And I remember a lot of organizations have gone through termination of contracts because of COC. So 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 this is something that I think it's a work in progress. And from my small roles, what I was able to do is, be a part of this sort of PSA networks, try to push for stronger policies, better cultures, more frequent awareness sessions, so that this becomes a priority in the organization, not just the PSCA issues, not just the COC issues, but I constantly try to talk to women about having a career ambition. This is where I'll just take a little bit of time and share this. I had noticed in my career that a lot of women, not anymore though, like this is from like my generation, women, from this generation, they're much smarter and much more able in navigating their life. But from our time, they were happy to have the job. They were not concerned about the promotions. They were not concerned about going on to the leadership roles. Like the greater majority, they were like, okay, so I'm working, I'm 2 years, 3 years, no promotions. They would not even talk about it with their supervisors. They would not talk about a raise with their supervisors. It's as if like somebody was doing them a favor, by keeping them in the organization. So these are things that society puts in your mind, that as a woman you feel that, like it's not, you haven't earned it. You have educated yourself all your life. You've worked so hard. You have come to this place. You are putting your work every day to be a professional. You're bringing value to the organization. But usually, like I've seen, like in the greater majority of the women that I've worked with, they did not have a career ambition. They didn't feel that they can actually dream towards that. Like to to reach a point in their life, like to have an aim. So these are some things that I always try to talk to my colleagues with. That and I've noticed that you have to make this into a culture. Like when men talk, uh, when men go out, have a smoke and talk, they're usually talking about professional things. But bringing this into women's conversations when they're having a conversation, bringing into in those aspiration and having conversations of career development, I think is extremely important for the what shall I say, for this culture to, like, for the working women culture to spread wider and making this whole place easier for women, because I'll tell you that surviving in the professional field is not the easiest thing. It's a struggle. For women, it's a continuous struggle from the home, at the office, in the society. It's a continuous struggle. So yeah, I think I've taken taken a lot of time and spoken a lot about this already. Yeah, I'll stop here.
Oh, no, no, don't apologize. It's your feminist oral history interview. Whatever you say, it's up to you. Okay, so never apologize for that. And I just want to like to thank you for your work. And it's very deeply, deeply disturbing to hear that like as we are in 2025, I'm not saying that like I'm surprised, but still like like we have like to make sure that like office spaces are should be should be safe place to work, right? Like it's the bare minimum we can ask for it, and that is something. It's so so sad that like power people in the power, they just get away about anything still now. So there's so much progress happening. I am very proud of that, but still there's so much work to do. And I'm so happy that like feminists like you, Appa, you're working tirelessly to like to make sure that like at least the workforces are being safe. Thank you. You also been working uh, about something very, very also crucial. And my question is also related to that. Is that you coordinate the custody and the guardianship advocacy and campaign at Naripokkho. So why is this issue so critical in the current legal and social landscape of Bangladesh? And can you tell us about your work in this area? What changes you're fighting for right now?
Right, exactly. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. Um, I really wish I had more numbers. I wish I had more numbers to give you. I know I did not see the numbers, on the divorce rate, current divorce rate, the number of family cases, but I think it's somewhere around, there are like 1,400. It's better that I don't say the numbers because I have not seen them recently and they must have changed. And I'll just talk about the situation, like in a qualitative way. So So I personally have experienced issues with, my children's custody when I went through my own divorce, and unfortunately, it was something out of my imagination, that how something that is happening so widely currently, like a separation and a divorce is a is not very uncommon in today's time. But how something that is happening so widely, people did not know their way around it. Like when we separated, how we are to, you know, um, negotiate or come to an agreement on the custody of our children, it became such a struggle, Onoy. It became such a struggle, and it had a very negative impact on our children. It had a terrible impact on us, the parents, and the children. And I felt that that was so unnecessary. Um, it didn't have to be that way. But I mean, after my divorce, I tried to mutually negotiate the custody of the children. And of course, my plea was that my children will stay with me. When I saw that my children's father did not agree to that, I decided to file a case and let the court, make the decision. So I filed a case after 3 months about, I think, yeah, I mean, I filed for divorce after I separated, and that took 4 months to be effective. And right after that, I filed for the case. And when I was trying to find a good lawyer for the case, I was amazed at how the lawyers spoke about it. They were speaking about how they can make the father look incompetent, to take care of the children. How they can make a lot of allegations against the father. They were very disappointed that I had not made previous mamla on the father, so that would have made it my case easier to win. I was thinking that this is the father of my children, and I do not want that kind of a relationship with this person. I mean, I have separated, but this is never meant to be a jutho, a war, because I have to raise the children with this person remotely, or I mean, we could not work it out staying in the same house, but now we have to do the parenting, from different places, because I never wanted my children to lose their father. And if I had, raised a war against my children's father, I don't see how we would be able to have a, relationship after this. So I just, I'm telling you very much my own feelings. Okay, these are my own feelings. These are my own thoughts. My ex-husband had been a very difficult person with me, but despite of that, my thinking was that no matter what he does, he is the father, and I wanted to have a working relationship with this person. And that was my goal. And I wanted the court to help me settle this in a fair way. I don't know if it makes sense to anyone, because when I said this, people were just shocked. People were like, I don't know what you mean. You have to get the custody of your children. That's what matters. And I'm like, okay, I get the custody of my children. And then I live in this traumatic situation where I'm fighting constantly with their father, and I'm raising my children, I'm working full time, and I have these enemies who are after me, and I have my children who have suddenly lost a parent. And like, how many traumas do you want me to deal with, at once? I have also recently, I mean, if I'm separated, I have also lost a partner, so I'm also recovering from that grief. So so it just seemed completely, I felt like as a society we were absolutely inequipped to deal with a situation like that. I mean, and if I hadn't gone through it myself, I would have had no idea how absurd and how cruel and how irrational the the whole thing, in the way in who the whole thing operated. And so what happened was that I was struggling my own battle. I was struggling my own battle. At the time, I was not with Naripokkho. This was in 2018 that I separated, in 2018 October. And in 2019, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. I'm having the worst year of my life. I'm having to keep a job, you know, while I'm having this mental trauma, and I don't also have the kids with me. The kids are at the father's place, and I'm having to deal with this separation anxiety with my children, which I cannot explain to you how difficult it was. And uh, and in all these madness, I meet Barrister Sarah Hussein. I meet Sarah Appa in one of the protests. I think that was the first organizing of the Shekul Bhangar Podojatra that was organized at, like a huge number. It was a women's rally that was organized after midnight, and this was in protest to the Shandho Ain, that basically prohibits female students to stay out after dark in the national university and college halls. And it was so absurd, like that they cannot stay out after the dark, and the hall would not take any responsibility for anything that happens to them. So this was a protest organized to sort of like dismantle that law, that draconian absurd law. Anyway, um, so that's when I met by Sarah Hussein. And we were walking side by side, and suddenly we had this conversation about, um, somehow she knew about my children's situation, and we were just talking. And then at one point, her being a lawyer, her being somebody who feels passionately about this issue, she was really flabbergasted to hear my situation, that um, we had that at the time there was a tug of war going. I, I, my ex-husband was not willing to let me have the children come to my house, and then I kidnapped them at one point, brought them to my house. They were with me for 3 months, and then again he managed to take them to his house somehow, and it was a mad battle that was happening, and I felt like I had to stop. One of us had to stop for the sanity of the children. So at that point, the conversation that I was having with Sarapa was during that time when also, this is in, I think, early 2000s, when COVID had hit. And because of the COVID, my ex-husband had also gotten the court to agree with them that because it's COVID time, the children are not allowed to physically meet anyone. So I had visitation rights, I had visitation rights weekly, but because it was COVID time, they were not comfortable to let me see my children. And the court they said that we're not going to take responsibility for anyone's, like contamination. COVID was a new thing, and the court also did not know the extent of its, like harm that it could do. So that was the decision. So I was communicating that to Barrister Sarah Hussein. So Sarah Appa was like, really, she said that they cannot do this. It's a absurd situation. And then I remember telling her that, like, at least now the children are in peace. I don't know what to do, because otherwise, what kind of environment we would be raising them up in, like where I'm pulling from one side and the father is pulling from the other side. I don't know what else to do. And then Sarapa said that, I mean, what kind of an environment are they growing up in now, where they think that they cannot see their mother, they're getting brainwashed against their mother and mother's family. So this is not acceptable. You have to do something about it. And and then we started these conversations, and she brought in mm, um, Isaba and um, oh my God, yeah, this is happening to me. So I forget names these days. So she's so close to me. Anyway, I'm not being able to remember her name. Isaba and her friend. Uh, do you
Are,
recall?
are are they part of Blast as well?
No, 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 no. Isaba, and so she's part of. She's a student. She goes to what do you call it? Jaginnogor University. They have just recently Prapti Nisaba. So Prapti Nisaba had a like a online webinar a few months before that, where they spoke about this issue. So Sarapa thought that it would be a good idea to talk to them and see if we can have a conversation on this, with mothers who are going through similar issues. We can bring in lawyers and they can give their advice and suggestions, and to bring this issue sort of under the spotlight. She thought we could start with something like that, and then we started. you know, uh, we communicated with Isaban Prapti. We spoke to Badhun Appa, Azmeri Haq Badhun, the actress, because she had been very vocal about this issue, about her personal case. So one of the reasons, Onoy, that this issue does not get a lot of coverage is because it is so personal, so sensitive, and in our society, we try to bury the family problems. It's not a culture to talk about it and come to a solution. It's rather a culture to show that everything is perfect. There's no problem, and people don't deal with it head on. So these are and there are real challenges also bringing this out, because when you're bringing this out in public, what happens is that you're actually also hurting the reputation of your children in some way, because they have to go to school, they have to deal with their, like teachers and students. But eventually, at this point, I think the situation is a lot better. I think schools are a lot more understanding. When I first got divorced, I was very worried about what to tell the schools, because when the school knows that the parents are separated, they are not very interested in taking your children. So many different layers of battle you have to fight, when you get into this area. So anyway, um, so Isaba and Prapti supported to organize a webinar where Badhunapa was there, and I was one of the mothers who spoke. There was another mother, I don't recall her name, Ainun Nahar Lipi, advocate Ainun Nahar Lipi was there, who is currently a judge. She's been recently appointed to, as a judge to I don't know which court, but however, and Sarah also joined the conversation. So that conversation I did not know, but a lot of people actually watched it and later on told me that আপা আপনাকে তো ওই জায়গাটা দেখছিলাম, আপনি এটা বলছিলেন, thank you for hosting that, আমার এরকম এরকম হয়েছে. A lot of people reached out to me after that, and I think a lot of people started to know about my situation. And Sarah Appa later on connected me to a lot of mothers who are going through similar kind of situations. And at this point, we have been collecting a lot of stories, situations that are being faced in different mothers' cases. I told you about the petition that has been filed in April 2024, which has kind of like started a process at the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs. And there's a task team now. I am a member of the task team from Naripokkho. So the task team is now tasked with the legal reform, having the legal reform to kind of address the discriminatory laws to something that gives equal opportunity to women, and for women to play in a level playing field with the male parent. There are also laws like if the father gets, if the mother gets married, she does not get the custody of her children. So these are extremely difficult things to fight with, like uh, because it is, I think, an absurd idea, Onoy, that because you have been divorced and because you want your children with you, that you will never think of marriage again. I think that it has to be dealt with in a different way. There has to be more effort from the court to assess if the mother's home and the father's home, which one is better for the child, in a fair way. So these are the things that we are trying to fight about. Currently, the legal system is such that there's a lot of scope for you to influence if you have money and power, you know and it's very easy to kind of also blame the character of the woman, of the mother, and the, mental stability of the mother and try to make her look like an incapable, person to have the custody. And a lot of women have lost their children, on this sort of grounds because they did not have a lot of money or power or connection, social connection, and it was, judged unfairly. And so these are things that we're kind of trying to sort of create a social support system for those mother to do, like advising on how they can fight it, help them get better lawyers. That's one side of the thing. There's the legal advocacy part where Mocha has taken up the thing, and then we're trying to support them with evidences to form more fair laws, and then the other part is the campaign, like a social campaign, to let people know the problems that society is facing, to bring this issue to light and to help maybe bring in better solutions to this problem. Like it's only when you put the issue under, like when you take the issue out of the box, then you can solve it. So right now that is a big part of our movement, to kind of bring the issue out of the box. And we're looking for people to support us, to help us, like young people who are good with like social media campaigns, social media, posts and all that. So we're trying to figure out a way to run public campaigns on this. This is something that we haven't started yet because it's a very sensitive issue and it needs to be done well planned and in a well thought out way. So till now, we're gathering evidences, we're gathering cases, we're gathering stories, and we're kind of trying to like develop the narrative and how to like move in, from a strong footing. Yeah.
Thank you, Vardapa. It sounds very exhausting. Like, more power to you. You have been like fighting for this custody battle, and I never ever like thought about it, like in your perspective. So I'm so glad it's sorted out right now, but it's just very exhausting. And still, I'm again repeating myself. Like it's 2025, and we're still talking about like safe spaces. We're talking about custody battles. Like what kind of like I would say improvement we have done to the society, like whenever it reminds me of like you were talking about like the 40% people in the leadership are women, like in the NGOs and like in the organizations, but in the core sense, like there's so many root levels of situations, they're still the same. And right now, whatever happening in the country, I'm just like feeling like we're going backwards. Like it reminds me of like a news I have read yesterday. I don't know if you have seen or not that the current interim government, they had this decision on like um the dowry related cases, like
Oh yes,
the woman no longer can like direct file cases, right?
right. Yeah,
That really angered the hell out of me. I'm going to be.
absolutely shocking. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely shocking.
I mean, in this scenario, like in this situation, and I've seen so bizarre like also reaction to that from also intellectuals as well. It's like, oh, in North America, they also can ask like this is not North America. First of all, like you cannot have both ways all the time. Okay, whenever we have this Nari Commission report and you're saying like, oh, this is not West, you cannot compare with our culture. And now whenever you're just like, want to justify something and you just like bring about North America or US or something, that this is really sad. Like survivors can no longer file direct cases in all dowry related abuse incidents, and in Bangladeshi context it's really really, I would say, going backwards, and I'm angry about it. And I don't I there's so many intellectuals and also like all the time this interim government has labeled as NGO government, and they don't know how to like to go like they're not politicians, they know just like know social issues and stuff as well. But this is not how an NGO government works, right? And that was really, really, I would say, disappointing. I'm still
And I hope we are going to have a protest, around that, and it should be reversed. It cannot be actually, it cannot go on like that. It's We would expect more and more women-friendly laws, more and
absolutely.
more women-friendly laws. If there are not enough courts, then we have to have other ways, magistrates, and there's a new position now. There's a the district, what do you call it? District assistant judges in different district offices who also support you in this sort of legal problems. So we have to have more of this sort of roles being sewed in to the, like the governance system, the legal system, rather than reducing our funding, investment, and commitment to provide justice to people of Bangladesh, and especially women, because the dowry thing is what shall I say, it's I mean, in the villages, if you are not getting to file a case, that would mean that you have to go through a shalish system, right? The Shalish system. So
And
you're basically
honestly,
throwing, yeah, yeah,
I do not endorse and also don't trust this
yeah,
system.
absolutely, absolutely. So the Shalish, there's no control. Like it's anyone can do it in their own way. It doesn't have to abide by any kind of law, and it depends on that particular community and society's discretion. And what if that particular community society is not sensitive to women? So you're basically throwing them to a, like, the dowry thing is happening because the society is insensitive, and now you're asking that they will make the judgment. So it's completely
And
absurd,
also,
right?
it's not about like dowry related cases.
Yeah,
It's that
yeah.
dowry related abuse cases where
Abuse cases, yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
now and you are saying that like there should be mediation like with through
Right,
solution something
right,
abuse
right.
and Salish, I just do not get along with this two
Mm,
words.
mm,
Like this is really angering me a lot. And now
absolutely.
no, no, but I'm so so glad to hear that like same feminists like you are working so hard for like equal safe spaces in office and also like through art and like other mediums and but also like this whole guardianship and like it sounds so exhausting but still like I yes I just got to know your story. I as you have mentioned, like Badhan has she's being a celebrity, so that like there's a sensationalizations of media that like all the time in media there's like a topic. So I always read her particular statements, and I really do kudos to her because I think in Bangladesh, as Bangladesh media really really misbehaves with celebrities and like how they kind of like I'm not endorsing Porimoni's work and or whatever she has done, but then again, the mistreatment they have done to particularly women also celebrities, they strip nakedly their lifestyle and everything, like every single stuff they kind of like misrepresent that. So kudos to Badhar and also kudos to you and all the feminists and all the women who really
Mhm.
wanted to to be in a conversation that like they can also have equal rights to their children. It cannot be a patriarchal thing, right? So I don't know if I do make sense or not.
No, no, no. If it didn't happen to me personally, I would not have believed how horrible the situation is right now. I would not have been able to really relate to it, because when it comes to children, how can the law be so unfair and so also insensitive to children? I mean, insensitive to women and to children.
And some are
So no, I
anti-woman,
fully agree with
right?
you.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And so, and also anti-woman.
anti-women. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
we have so many laws which are anti-woman? We need to like to speak up. Like I know
Um,
Naripokkho feminists like you were also speaking up. The Nari Commission did, but and then we are just labeled as like besha, right? Like that's something comes up and we just like they just find out the fraction on the fragments and
Right.
they try to like to kind of like being loud and like try to like to make sure that like okay fine. I think as also the world politics has become such a populist idea that like the loud voices are being heard by people, right? Like although feminists are being called as like we do like we are ugly, we like we just like scream at in movements and in a protest or something, but I think we also need to be loud as hell there like them so that like they like overpower them as well.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. We do. And you saying that also, helps, gives me courage personally, like to hear you say that, because we are also navigating through a lot of challenges ourselves in a personal in the personal life, in the work life. So we need to keep telling each other that we need to be louder. We need to be louder. And on the law thing, I just want to say that when the law was formulated, when a law is formulated, it's formulated considering the current social, like aspects. And the current guardianship law is very old. It's from the late 1800s. So it has been revised, parts of it, but then there are sections of it that are still discriminatory. And the whole system of, uh, you know, uh, law reform is very rigid. So you have to be consistently, pushing in different doors to help bring the change. And it also depends who are in the, like who in the parliament, what the situation of the government, the legislature, who are in those seats and who are making these decisions and how they're thinking. So unfortunately, our society is, you know, it wants to serve the mass, which comes with a patriarchal mindset. So, bringing reform in any law is extremely difficult. Coming to the, I wouldn't blame the law itself because it was formulated at a very old time, but the revision process, so that it actually serves the greater majority. That's where I think women's voices need to come out more and more and more. And coming to the Women's Commission thing that you said, sorry, you wanted to say something. Yeah.
No, I just want to say like that it also reminds me of property rights and also Hindu property rights.
Yes,
Well, there's so many work to be done.
absolutely, absolutely. And that those have been addressed in the Women's Commission report. I am so happy and proud. I'm so happy and proud, Onoy, that I'm standing at a time where we can actually have a report like the Women's Commission report, where we can claim equality in each and every part of the, of the legal and the governance structure. It's amazing to me because I remember, like, uh, a couple of years ago or even last year, we're fighting for this revision in this one or two parts of the custody and guardianship, law, and it's so hard. It's so hard. And now the Women's Commission comes up with this huge report where they have made 440 plus recommendations, and all of those, like addressing different discriminations. Of course the report can be improved. Of course there can be debates and dialogues on the report. Not, I mean, no report can be perfect, but it's just that gives me so much pride and happiness that we're standing at a time where we're able to make a submission like that. And coming back to the Besha, the addressing of the hifazat and different political you know especially the religious fundamentalist groups, calling out like that. I think of that as a, I mean, this is just my personal thinking, that the fact that this report has caused so much stir in the society, now everyone in Bangladesh knows that there is a Nari Commission, there has been a report, and such things has been said. I mean, no matter how terrible the backlash, I keep saying this, and I think that it has done a certain kind of publicity for us. It shows how negative, I mean, how difficult is the social structure right now, the political structure and the social structure right now, where we are operating. But I think that it only tells us that how much more work needs to be put into this area. And to me, I think that moving forward, I think we really need to have all women political party to, if we want to fend off this kind of, opponents and this kind of ideological battle. So while this is a huge, you know um, like disappointment of how the um, Women's Commission report was received, at the same time, I think it's an indication of how much we have to really ramp up the work and perhaps create a dedicated space for women to advocate for politically, like being in a dedicated women's political party who will take up these bills to the what do you call it, the parliament, and advocate for them and bring in changes. I don't know, that's just my thinking, because while Bangladesh is it has all kinds of people living in it, like it has a very diverse demography with Muslim majority. It has tribal societies. We have we're a Muslim majority country, but we have Hindu families. We have Buddhists, and we have different kind of smaller tribal societies. We do have a very what shall I say, strong academia. We have a strong civil society. We have a we have a strong young youth group that we have seen in the several movements, and even in last year July, that can be mobilized, for a greater cause. And I this is my feeling. This is just my feeling that when we are pushed to the wall, this force does come up. When we're pushed to the wall, this force comes up and surfaces, and we show our faces. So perhaps before we're pushed to the wall again, there needs to be a more strategic, action. Perhaps, like I said, a political party, because I do not trust any of the political parties in moving forward the women's agendas at the parliament. At this moment, I really feel that they're, I mean, even if it takes 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years, we really need to have an all women political party. It was just my thinking, I keep. Yeah.
Thank you, Wardapa. Yeah. Um, we are having such a good conversation. I'm so grateful for that. So, Wardapa, you have worked across different age groups and publics. What has intergenerational dialogue meant for your work?
Okay, so intergenerational dialogues. Um, I'll just I'll try to keep it short, and I'll just give some examples from my work with Naripokkho. So intergenerational, whenever you try to like work across different generations, there are certain differences, in the ideology, in the life that we have lived, and in the kind of way we see things, experience things. But there are also a lot of advantages, when there are a lot of advantages that comes in with the intergenerational platforms. So for me, I have always been a person who has tried to kind of um, find the solution to things, whatever challenges are there. I've always tried to think that, okay, so this is the challenge. How can we take the whatever we have in here and turn that into a solution? So I would say for example, for my work in Naripokkho, um, it's, I think that we have such experienced, um, women feminists in that platform, and sometimes it gets difficult because so many opinions, and they have to come to a agreement. Everyone has to come to an agreement for something to happen. There are so many times that people cannot come to an agreement, and because of that, things don't move forward because there is no consensus. So navigating through those kind of things, in our generation, we're much quicker and faster. We try to take in an issue, we try to make a decision, okay, even if it's not, even if it doesn't fit my expectation, I'll be like, okay, let's go forward with it, let's go with it. We're much quicker with decisions, but I think that in the earlier times, it's the negotiation. When you go to the negotiation table, the conversations are much more, they also have much more knowledge than our generation. So the different debates also come from those areas. But I think that it is, if you want to do anything, if you want to achieve anything big, in a larger scale, say for example in a national scale or transnational scale, if you want to take your fight, if you want to take your movement, if you want to take your cause to a national or transnational, like a global platform, it's extremely important to get in the views of everyone into that space. I don't know if that's what you're asking with your question when you're saying intergenerational dialogues.
Well, it's your feminist oral history interview.
Okay, okay,
Whatever
okay.
you
All right, all
say,
right, all
that's
right,
the
all right. So,
answer.
so to me, I think that to me that we have only to gain from that, and I believe that if you are having difficulty in operating with certain platform, you can form your own small platform. You can also be an individual working working individually. But I think that when it comes to issues such as feminist issues, when it comes to issues such as any kind of marginalized group, any kind of marginalized community, when it comes to these sort of issues, that I think that it is very important for us that if it's not issues like sexual harassment, bullying, or corruption, these sort of issues that are getting in the way, that I think that we should put our own opinions aside for the moment and come in and like work together for achieving, like, what should I say, the greater goals, like we can have, as feminists or as activists, we can have our own areas from where we do our work, but at the same time, I think it's very important for those collaborations to happen from time to time when needed, from where you can do continued campaign and advocacies, you know, and to bring a social change. And I think that when we are talking about any kind of feminist movement, the cultural aspect of it is extremely important, because we can like when you talk about a movement or an advocacy or a campaign, it needs to be communicated to people. It's not only, you're not running a campaign only to bring people into that who are already agreeing with, you know but you also want to bring in some changes in other people's thinking who are probably not yet connected with you, who are probably not understanding your issues, probably not, like, you do want to bring a behavior change also, you want to bring a thought change. So in those areas, I think that, in the intergenerational conversations and intergenerational movements, the more and more creative we can be with our movements, and more and more we can use cultural tools, dramas, skits, poems, songs that really hit the mind and help you to rethink the way that you think. We can get there quicker. We can actually move there quicker. So intergenerational dialogues, I think that you cannot do without it. You cannot do without it because a society is uh, it's composite. It's a composite composition. Like there are everyone is in it. Even the rapist is a part of a society. You cannot think of the society beyond that. So you also have to have the solution for the rapist. I mean, you cannot think that you can send the rapist to Mars and the problem will be solved, but it needs to be addressed from a very root level. You can have laws and you can have punishments and you can have all that kind of things, but you also have to think about how you can build a society that will prevent the production of rapists. So so that kind of a thinking, if, without a kind of an intergenerational dialogue and debate, you cannot possibly address all of those layers. I think that it's very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Arda. So I have two questions, but I'm going to march them together. So the first question is that what gives you hope when you look at feminist movement building in Bangladesh today, and what would you say to the young feminist activists just beginning their journey?
Right. So right or wrong, right or wrong, I feel that I am full of hope at this moment. I am full of hope, and it has never been otherwise. It has never been otherwise that I ever feel that, there is no hope for the future. A lot of people say that we're looking at like a brewing Afghanistan, in Bangladesh. But I somehow feel like that's never going to happen because I think that women in Bangladesh are in general vocal, from their own places. They're vocal, and I really feel like that all of the campaigns that we're doing right now. This is a term that I recently learned from Moshumidi. Moshumi, she was here in Dhaka a couple of months ago, and she was showing us a sound sculpture that she had created. It's basically it's a 45 minutes um, sound documentary of the different revolutions and the different protests that led to the revolutions. And she calls it the rehearsal for revolution, you know. And that was the first time that I heard this term called rehearsals for revolution. So honestly, I feel like Onoy, that the way that I have seen the feminist movement evolve from the time that I have joined in it, and it has not been very long. Like my involvement with Naripokkho is like from 2020s, so it's not has been very long. I have seen it grow bigger and bigger and stronger and more connecting to people. In 2020, the number of people that connected to it, I feel like it is. I mean, I'm certain that in the 1970s and 1980s, I'm not sure how the experience was of Sufia Kamal, and Sultana Kamal and all of their experience, and when Mohila Parishad was formed and Naripokkho was formed in the 1980s. So I haven't heard their personal experiences, but I I can tell you from my personal experiences that I see the stream becoming louder and stream becoming more powerful. And maybe we are getting busier on oil. That's a fact. That's a reality over time that we are busier. We have so much tying us up and stealing our time in the modern time, especially with the cell phones. You with the smartphone now, you have a lot of things that you have to keep up with. In the 1970s, 80s, they didn't have those distractions. So currently, it is difficult for us to show what is happening inside our minds because we're tied up. But believe me, I think that the kind of energy that I see the more and more moving forward, the recent Moitri Jatra that was organized in a very recent time, um, the energy, the kind of organizing spirit, despite of the disagreements that people had within themselves, was amazing. I think that if that continues, and these are all rehearsals for a revolution, and I really feel that these rehearsals are getting more and more. We're getting towards a revolution, and I really feel that it's gonna happen. It's going to happen. The revolution is going to happen when we're gonna see significantly better time for women in Bangladesh. You had another question following that a message for younger
Yep,
feminists,
yep,
right?
yep. If you want to answer.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, of course, and I am so proud and so impressed with the new generation. So proud and so impressed. Like they are so much smarter than us, and they're so much uh, equipped than us. They're so much vocal than us. They're so much more articulate than us, and I feel like that they don't need any advisors. They are they're good on their own. The only thing that I can say is that with the capabilities, with the capacities that they have, comes responsibility. And it is very important to be committed to the work that we do. It's important to be committed. So as long as we can commit to a long-term vision. I mean, when I was growing up, it was very easy for me to have a long-term vision on oil. But right now, in the transitional time that we're in, it's difficult. It's becoming more and more difficult for me to have a long-term dream and a long-term vision. Dreams are constantly being broken. But I would say for the younger feminists that we have to dream together, and we have to make the longer term easier together. And it's never stop dreaming, no matter what happens. Don't lose hope. If you want to go abroad, come back. Come back with your ammunition and with your like even stronger weapons, or however way contribute to Bangladesh feminist movement, because I think that Bangladesh has so much potential. Bangladesh is full of stories. It's full of new things happening all the time. It's probably one of the most dynamic and changing society. Like one of the most dynamic, changing societies in the world. And I think that here, if you put effort, you are able to make a difference. And we are very grateful to our foremothers and feminists before us because of how much effort, dedicated commitment that they have put into this movement, that they have made a very strong foundation and ground for us to work in. And they are willing to, like, the intergenerational dialogues that you spoke about. They are willing to have that with us. They have given us a space. There is that space. So I would definitely welcome them to join that space and claim their space, claim their dream, and follow it. I think that there is no scope for disappointment. Yeah.
Wadapa, thank you for being with us today and for generously sharing your story of power, struggle, and transformation. Your voice, your work, and your vision now live within this growing archive. As part of the Bangladesh Feminist Oral History Project, your reflections will continue to inspire feminists, researchers, and organizers for years to come. So, to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to the Bangladesh Feminist Archives YouTube channel and visit our website for more stories like this. This is the Bangladesh Feminist Oral History Project because our histories are not just past, they are blueprints for feminist futures. Thank you, Wardapa, again, and thank you
Thank you, Anwar.
all for being with us. Thank you so much, Wardapa. That was amazing. Thank you.